friend and colleague of mine if anyone knows BNI networking groups, we're in the Philly chapter, the best Philly chapter together.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Polikoff, thank you for joining us. And
Absolutely.
as everyone gets notified here that we're live and starts to tune in, we're going to hear from Dave about his experience buying a home for the first time, going through the process, his journey. So if you have questions for Dave as you listen to his story, make sure to put in the comments, or just you could DM me, or you could DM Dave as well. He'll be tagged here, and also learn about his business. So definitely give him a follow, because if anyone out there is interested in social media, marketing, SEO, content, copywriting, all these things, a lot of things that Dave can do.
Yeah.
Make
Follow
sure
for more.
follow for more. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm excited to hear your story. So Dave, you bought your house in North Philly, March of 2021.
Mm.
So thick of COVID times
Yeah.
in the thick of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Rates were super low. Excellent time to
Yeah, they
buy.
were.
So
Yeah.
how did you, well, first of all, tell people, before we get into the whole process, tell people what is your favorite part of your house?
My favorite part of the house is the fact that it's a triplex. So it's a triplex, which means there's a lot more to consider instead of single family, obviously. But the numbers on it are just crazy good. So that's probably my favorite part. Now, being that it was my first investment property or first house, I don't even know, I'm like first one, but being my first house, it was pretty wild to go all in on a triplex. But it ends up being kind of my favorite thing, especially because I have obviously three different units. So there's like three different experiences that I get to have. Three different groups of people that I get to experience. So that's been fun.
Yeah, that is, we'll get into that. That is a lot to take
Yeah.
on, as you're not just you're buying essentially one house, but it's three different places to live, three different kitchens, three different
Mhm.
units with multiple bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yeah. More
All
piping, more piping, more problems, as they say. Or at least I'll say.
Yeah.
Tag me on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's multiple more things that could go wrong. Knock on wood, it's been okay, but it hasn't been three times the amount of problems. But that is obviously part of buying basically three single homes in one.
Yeah, exactly. How did you go about choosing the part that you wanted to live in? Because there was three different options.
So this kind of goes hand in hand with the purchasing story itself, but this was over COVID, and where I purchased the house is people are familiar with the Philadelphia area. It's on Diamond Street, which is right near Temple University. So this usually is rented out to a lot of Temple students. But this is March 2021, and at that time everything's shutting down. Temple didn't have students coming in, so which means students weren't living there. So the current owner that was how they were making their ends meet, was renting to Temple students. They no longer had tenants. So when I bought it, only one of the three apartments was rented out, and that was the top floor. And the bottom floor was one that had one bathroom, and the middle floor had two bathrooms. And I'm like, well, I only need one bathroom, and once I rent the middle one out, I'll be getting more for that one. So it just kind of economically was the decision of which one I lived in. Also, there was a back patio or backyard in the first floor one, so I was like, I kind of want that.
Okay, that's great. And you as the owner can kind of choose. But that's great
Yeah.
that you had the foresight to think, like, it's not just about me living here today, it's about how this property can benefit me and make a profit in the future, which is awesome.
Yeah, it all came down to the numbers. I mean, looking at different properties and areas, and you're seeing what's rent in that area. How was it renovated recently? Am I going to have to put money into it? And then just looking at, okay, if the mortgage is going to be X, and I think I can get Y plus that little middle area, but with things I need to put away in case the pipe does burst or tenants break something, whatever. What do the numbers say? And this one was good. And then over the years, I've kind of figured out how to make it a little better.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, how did you go about finding and choosing your realtor? And well, was that the first step that you did, or did you look at what you could qualify first? Did you look at your budget, or did you go for the realtor first?
My realtor decision was pretty easy. It was my brother, and he had just been getting into real estate. I think he had just gotten his license, and I had just been. Well, I've been like interested. I might. This is again over the pandemic, where I'm trying to figure out what I'm locked into this apartment that I'm paying someone else's mortgage, and I want to kind of do the rich dad poor dad, invest into some real estate, whatever. Um, and so that was right around the time my brother was also getting his license, and I'm like, I feel like this is just kind of a sign. So, after some convincing, hard convincing, I went with my brother, and so it was great because it was my first house, and it was my first house I bought, and it was the first house that he helped someone buy. So it was a great experience for both of us. And yeah, so it was quite the learning experience, and it was fun because the great part is it was his first house, but he was so involved because he wanted to learn everything, and it was just experiences for both of us. We were both kind of learning and feeding back on and forth. We were looking stuff up together at times and being like, "Hey, did you know this?" and like whatever. So that was like a fun experience, not just because it was my brother, but like it was like we were in it together.
That's awesome. That
Yeah,
is like really great. A great experience for him not to have to feel too much pressure, working with a stranger, but working with his brother.
yeah,
That's awesome. And then
right,
obviously for
yeah.
I'm sure you learned a lot too, just because you were right by his side the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously he's just a great realtor altogether and great person. So, he makes you feel like comfortable, and even if he didn't know something at the time because it's his first house, he went and figured it out and came back right away and all that kind of stuff, which is great for me because it just made me as a first time buyer be like, all right, at least I'm in good hands.
Yes. He had great
Yeah,
has great support around him, which is the most important thing to be successful, usually.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then, how did you know you could afford a triplex? Like most people would not be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna buy this triplex, my first house ever." So how did you
So
know
this,
you could afford it? What it was gonna
this
look
is what's
like?
crazy. I wanted a house hack. I wanted to have at least a duplex and rent out the other one. And in Philly, there are multifamily, but multifamily is kind of there's like if you're familiar with Philadelphia, there's Market Street, and then there's kind of like 10 blocks north and south of Market Street, which are kind of the more expensive areas to live. And as you kind of get past that, there's like multifamily and other kind of investment opportunities there that could be a bit more affordable. And so I wanted to do a duplex, and so we were looking at duplexes, but then like the opportunities for the duplexes weren't either in my price range, or I didn't like the area, or I didn't like the duplex itself. And I wanted something that I knew I can move in and not have to really do anything or do much to, because it was my first place. And if I was doing multifamily, I didn't want like more apartments that I had to fix and whatnot. So I wanted something that was kind of out of the box and multifamily. And then the other thing too is I did an FHA, and I knew I was going to do an FHA, which meant it was going to be 3.5% down. And so I kind of was doing the calculations of, all right, well then what does that mean in terms of what I would be willing to put down and whatnot. So I had that kind of number in my head, and so that's far less than the 20% typically and whatnot. So I was looking at like duplexes, and I couldn't really find anything I liked. And then I was like, screw it. And I went on Zillow, and I kind of, how they have the between like, the low and the high of what you're looking for. I was like, well, let's see what's up here. And like, scrolled all the way up, and, that opened up the triplexes to the map. They popped up on the map, and I'm like, all right, well, let's click around. And I saw a couple that were like, yeah, these are like move-in ready. And again, this is like COVID time. So, um, a lot of these are kind of on like a fire sale in a little bit of a way. And yeah, saw a few that were, including the one that I eventually bought that fit that. And I did the math and I'm like, I can still technically afford that with the 3.5 down. And, maybe there's like a little bit of a seller assist that could need to be thrown in there. So I was like, screw it, it still works. And again, the numbers, I knew what the rent was. I nerded out about this whole thing. I got a spreadsheet and I read all the, the bigger pocket stuff. So like
Yeah.
Brandon Turner and everything, like I was deep in all of that, all the books, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So I understood what the numbers needed to look like. And I had a spreadsheet and I would go on Zillow, find an apartment. Then I would look up the numbers to see what the rent was on some other rent estimator tool, and then crunch the numbers. All right, what's the estimated mortgage, and then what's the capital expenditures on top of that, and everything I might need to put away, and all that kind of stuff, vacancy costs and all that. And I would see, like, do I have any money left after this? Am I breaking even, or am I making any money? And the one I went with, the numbers still worked, and I hope not. No, whatever.
I don't know
The
why.
numbers still. I think I can do these things, and like it pops up.
Yeah,
Um,
it's cool.
yeah, and I think you can do double too. Right? There it is. Yeah.
Whoa!
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So anytime there's I make a big statement, I'll do that now.
Yes,
So that's a thumbnail right there.
that is.
So yeah, the numbers still worked in terms of like I was going to walk away with money after rent and the capex and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, I can actually pull that Zillow number all the way up this way, and I can still afford it, and I could still profit from it. At the end of the day, like if the numbers go work, might as well go for it. So, yeah, I think people are surprised. Like, when you're doing a 30-year mortgage, when you go up another like $15,000, it's like $10 difference in your monthly mortgage because it's just
Yeah,
spread out amongst however many months.
it's generally like
So
$10,000, $10,000 in price, up or down, $50 a month, which is like
okay, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So and you're thinking like, all right, well, someone else is paying for that anyway. So, yeah. So you can kind of sometimes play with that meter a little bit. Granted, if it's if you're doing a rental property, I mean, if you have a fixed budget for your own personal home, it's a little different. But
Right.
since someone else is paying for my mortgage, it was a little easier.
But essentially, you were still qualifying for a piece of that mortgage based on your income. You were qualifying for a piece because based on it being a triplex, there's two other units that can generate income. So it
Hmm.
basically helps you qualify. It's like you have more income essentially without having another job. So you're
Yeah,
able
and
to count that income in there.
which they did, yeah, and then they looked at like the current because there was um, the one tenants that were already in there, and so they took that monthly rent, and then they assumed I'd get the other one filled, and so they just doubled that. And at the time, they were paying 1,500 a month for that because it's 3 bedrooms per unit.
Nice.
They're paying 1,500 a month, and so it was like another 3K a month income that they just kind of added to the qualification.
Yes, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Definitely, you have to be ready for it, and you have to probably be like Dave, where you're like listening to podcasts and researching and talking to people. But if you are ready for something like that, it's a great way to get a house for yourself and also become an investor right away. House hacking.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
best.
that's what as soon as I started to see kind of understand the idea that I'm paying someone else's mortgage, it really just kind of irked me every time I had to pay it every month. So I'm like, all right, I got to flip
Yeah, then
this
you
equation.
literally flipped it. You're like, not only am I
Yeah,
gonna not pay somebody else's mortgage and pay my own, I'm gonna get somebody else to pay
to
my
pay
mortgage.
mine.
Thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is great. And then eventually, so I had to live there for 10 months. Well, I had to live there for a year. Lived there for 10 months. Don't come after me. But with FHA, you have to be there for a year. And I, after that, then went and obviously moved somewhere else and moved out, and then filled, filled my vacancy. And then the numbers are great. And then basically, I use that extra income to put towards the rent that I have now. So it's like, it's still kind of paying my rent, if you will,
Okay.
even after I'm out of it.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I always love to remind people of this because I did something similar. I bought my first house. I lived in it for like 4 years. I wanted to move from New Jersey to Philadelphia. I wasn't really ready to maybe buy again, but I wanted to move. So, people always think that they're locked in place when they buy a house. They're like, I don't want to
Hmm.
be stuck there. It's like you're not stuck. You just have a massive asset that you can leverage and use. So, I just
Hmm.
took the money out of that first house to help eventually buy my next one. But in the intermediary time, I myself was renting while somebody else was paying for my mortgage and living in the house. So it's
Right.
like you can leave whenever you want. Just get somebody else in there to pay it.
Yeah, you own it. Just the and that's like, I think that's the thing. Yeah, I think you're saying that people kind of don't think about. And actually, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. Is the idea of, they, if you have the money to be able to buy the next house without having to sell your current one, then I mean, I'm not a professional, but I think that's the best approach. And one of my buddies just did this, and he has a house in South Philly that he then purchased another house in Conshohocken, and he rents out the one in Philly. And it's like, all right, you still own that asset now. You can still,
Yeah.
take out money against it, and someone's paying the mortgage, and now you can sell that in however many years. And so, you don't need to sell your current house in order to get the next one, I would say. But a lot of people, I think it's a matter of, well, financially, and also you do become a business owner. Like a rental property is a business, and so you have to think about, how to manage tenants, and if something breaks, whatever. So it's a part of your brain that kind of have to dedicate to it. And some people are just like, I don't really want to do
Yeah.
that. But for those who do, it's a great opportunity.
Definitely, definitely. And there's a lot of resources out there to help you and, figure out
Yeah.
how to do it if it is something you're interested in. So, all right. What was one of the more difficult parts of the process for you?
All of it, really, because everything went wrong. Everything. It was a miracle I got this house, and maybe that's a lesson out there for anyone who's looking to do it, but is worried it'll be hard. In some cases it will be, and it'll be difficult, and you'll hit every hurdle. But there's a bit of a tenacity you just have to kind of put into it, because the benefits of it afterwards are great. Um, so I just had kind of a nightmare story, nothing to do with my brother and him as my realtor or anything like that. Just little things along the way just kind of popped up. Some of the things were my fault, and some of the things were just kind of like scenarios that came across. But yeah, I think little things that would happen is like on, I don't even know if I told you this story, but on the inspection day, our first inspection, we went in to the bottom floor, and the other tenants, like I said, are living on the top third floor. And the inspector person goes into the back kitchen, and all of a sudden hears this, goes, "Uh oh, that's not good." And I'm like, "Uh oh, that can't be good. That what?" And I walk in, there's water pouring down from the kitchen ceiling. And I'm like, oh crap, like what could that be? So we go to the second floor, and we go to the kitchen in the back of that floor, and a pipe had burst under the sink, and water was just flooding into the kitchen and going down to the first floor. And everything's running through my head in terms of like, oh no, this is like, I need to back out of this now. Like, I don't know how to deal with this, because I had never done, like, how bad is this situation that happened? And we called the people, and they were like, I don't know, people haven't been in there for a while, so maybe when you like fix the water or something, I don't know, whatever. So they got that patched and fixed and all that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
it's still in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then eventually I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go through with it. And if I would have backed out for like that reason, I would have lost so much of this opportunity that I have right now, where like you got to just see the bigger picture and realize that a house, in my opinion, a house is a pizza box. Like, it's meant to kind of be cut into and patched up and fixed, and things are supposed to break every now and then, but you can
Yeah.
fix them easily. So, don't get too hung up on that kind of stuff. I would say, because honestly, the long run, the money just makes sense.
That's a great point. Don't get too afraid or scared. Take a like, it is overwhelming for people to think about, oh my gosh, you're under contract to buy this house. Like you're in a binding contract essentially. Now you could maybe get out of it through the inspection period where you say, no,
Yep.
I don't want to buy this anymore. But that's good that you took a step back and said, okay, all right, yes, this is a pain, it's leak, you know, this is a pain in the ass, but it can be fixed and it makes sense still for my long-term goals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think people, especially their first house, you naturally go into it thinking that the smallest thing is actually going to be the largest thing in the world. It's going to be a bigger problem than you actually think. And so you might like get worried about it and back out. But it's just do some education on like, how easy is it to like actually fix this thing? How much is it to really fix this thing? And then in the grand scheme of things, I have my new house, whether it's for you, it's my dream house, or if it's for a rental property, or like it'll pay for
Yep.
itself and eventually. So, there's, unless it's like foundational stuff where you're like, this house isn't safe, if it's
And
small little things,
that's the whole point of the inspection. The inspection,
right,
as soon as you go under contract, you schedule that inspection, you go in with a professional, they're going to tell you if it's safe to live in, if it's structurally sound, all that stuff. And then the little stuff,
yeah,
it's like, take it with a grain of salt. Think about the big picture.
yeah, yeah. But at the time,
Yeah, it's like,
when I say that I was like everything went wrong and I was like so scared, at times, it's that kind of stuff because you don't have the lived experience yet to know it'll be okay. But to you, this is like the biggest thing in the world, and you're already kind of on edge and nervous about the whole process. So first time home buyers, like everything's going to feel like a mountain, but like over time, you'll look back and be like, that was a molehill. Like it wasn't,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I could have dealt with that.
Hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
All right. So what about some fees that you didn't expect
Mm.
throughout the process?
Closing costs, that's the part I kind of knew, but then there was like, line items start coming and you're like, oh, okay, I have to bring this to closing, and then there's this, and then there's the earnest and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that stuff I like kind of knew. Like I said, I did a lot of like the bigger pockets and research beforehand to try to be as well prepared going into it as possible. And again, my brother was like good with providing that, and then my like mortgage company and all that kind of stuff would give me here's what this is going to be, and give you documents and all that. So I think that was that, and then there was a lot of stuff with going to closing, that there was some shuffling of cards that needed to happen on the back end, that kind of changed some of those numbers along the way, but that was kind of more unique to me.
Mm.
But
Do you
other than
remember what
that,
some of them were?
what's that?
Do you remember what some of those numbers that kind of
I think it
changed?
was the points or something.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they had to like add a few more to like make some of the numbers work. They had to add a few points or something
Okay.
at the end, which meant like just like more at closing. I think that was all it was. But I still had like um, my interest rate, which I got it at the lowest of lows at 2.5.
Right.
So
Oh my God,
it just
2.5. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
lock, yeah, you lock in, you don't lock the interest rate in until you actually are under contract. Once you're under contract, you see where the market's at, you lock in that interest rate. But there can be, I guess, change of circumstance could have happened for
yeah.
you where things get adjusted. Maybe the appraisal comes in lower, the price you're offering for the house like changes. Anyway, all that to say, the discount points are what you pay to artificially drive down the rate. So everyone
Mm,
usually pays discount points, half a point, 1 point, which is 1%, 2 points, 2% of the loan amount.
mhm,
The more you pay up front in points, the lower the rate, and vice versa.
mhm. Okay, yeah, I think that's what it was. There's like, yeah, there was a lot of kind of changing of some things at the end there. Just kind of, it was a unique situation. But I think in order to kind of keep that interest rate, they were like, hey, just got to put a couple more points on. I was like,
Yeah.
all right. But yeah, a quick aside story to this whole thing and why I didn't really care as much about the points thing, and this is just like kind of partly related to real estate, is this is going on right at the time of all those meme stocks that are happening, like GameStop and all that, right? That happened at like the end of February, where it was just Robinhood and GameStop and like, whatever. So I was getting into that a little bit too. And I put some money into a couple of those, like, it weren't meme stocks, but it was, which one was it? It was one of these stocks, and I put like a few $1,000s into it, and then the next day was my actual inspection. This is my rescheduled inspection,
Okay.
and the inspection's at like 9:30, which is right at opening bell, and for the stock market. And so I'm going into my uh, my tour or
Inspection.
whatever, inspection, and opening bell happens, and all of a sudden this stock starts to just like skyrocket, and I'm seeing how much money I'm making, and I'm half even paying attention to this entire inspection because I'm like, I might just buy this house straight cash at this point. I wasn't making that much money, or it wasn't going up that high, but I'm like, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking at this. I don't think I even told my brother about this, right? But I'm like, cool, like, this thing, whatever. And I'm like looking down at my phone, like, swiping to refresh. And eventually it kind of evened out or whatever towards the day, because it went like this and like that and like the same day. But I cashed out, and I was like, I made some money. And then they were like, oh, by the way, it's going to be, you know, X amount more money. And I'm like, whatever. I got money on this meme stock, so
Yeah, I love
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Don't take that advice for how you should buy your first house, though.
Investing. Yeah,
That was a gamble.
honestly, it is probably bad for people. Don't take your money that you're going to be using for your down payment and
Right.
deposit and
That
invest
was
it.
the other thing too.
What if you
They're
lose
like,
it?
they're like, don't make any big purchasing decisions or whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
but that wasn't
Now,
crazy.
of course, if you have a couple thousand extra that you just are, you
It was
could,
already in that brokerage account.
it's
It
already
wasn't
there.
like I
Yeah,
needed.
it's already in the brokerage account. Fine. But like,
Yeah.
people say to me all the time, they're like, all right, I'm gonna pay this card off. Like before, I'm like, no, 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 don't do that. Don't pay off this credit card. Like, unless, don't put your money anywhere else. Like, keep the money where it is. Don't move it around, because this is what we're assuming you have for closing costs and down payment.
Is
And if that
that?
changes, you're no longer qualified for what we said you were qualified for.
I remember is there like because there's a debt to income ratio. So if you have some money on like a credit card or like a car payment or whatever, would it be okay to do it then if it like helped with your debt to income ratio, or
Well,
is it still like whatever?
exactly. No, that's a great point. Yes, exactly. If your debt is too much overbearing compared to your income, then and you have a lot of, savings and money available to you, then yes, sometimes it does make sense. But I always tell people, no, no, don't do anything until we look at the whole picture,
Yeah.
because
Talk first.
you want to make sure that it's either going to boost up your credit score enough that it's like gets you to another threshold where you get a better rate. Because
Mhm.
if it's not going to move the needle, it's not worth it to put that money,
Right.
out there. So
Right.
always like consult with a credit coach, or just like we'll look at it during the pre-approval process. But I had someone one time that, yeah, they wouldn't qualify unless they paid off their car loan, but they had all the money. So we were
Yeah.
like, all right, if you pay off this car loan, you could get the house. So at closing, they like wired all the money to the title company, and the title company wrote the check to the car loan to.
Oh, interesting. That
So it
was
was like
day of.
in with their closing.
Yeah. Smart. Yeah. I feel like I've only had one closing, but that day even is like such an experience. Like there's sometimes little moving parts that you need to kind of prepare for. But it's once you get through all the signatures and you get the keys, you're like, all right, we're good now.
Yes, it's a lot.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you remember what your timeline was from like very, very start to finish, and what were like the milestones?
When I started to look for an apartment or a house, um, maybe August. August of 2020. I was thinking about it. Um, Going into September, November, I think I was more serious about it. And I think my brother had just gotten his license at that point, and went into was in a group, a real estate company at that time. And So we kind of like passively, I would like go on Zillow and I would send him something like, hey, what about this one? He's like, you want to check it out? I'm like, all right, sure. Like, why don't we, again, because it's like, he just wanted to get the reps in to, go through this. And he was learning when he would go to places. So we're like, all right, let's just do it. And all the places were in Philly. So I was already there. Yeah, so we would start to see a couple places. And then through that experience, we would know like, okay, definitely don't want that. And, it looked better in the, on Zillow or something than it does when you get there. And so you kind of start to learn how to find places and how to kind of disqualify places. And you say, you think, okay, I've been to a couple of these places and I knew I didn't like that. So if you see it again in the Zillow listing or the pictures, you're like, okay, I know I'm not going to like that. So that was like a couple months. And then I think in December, I found this place. Actually, I found another triplex that I really liked, and I tried putting an offer in there. Or no, someone came in and bought it cash like that week or something. Yeah, it was like it went up and off the market in a couple days. So that like discouraged me. But then at the same time, I was like, wait, there's this other triplex like 3 blocks away. That's like the same thing. Let's just check that one out. And that was probably in December. And then after that, I think we went under contract probably towards the end of December, maybe early January. And then I think maybe in sometime in mid-January, maybe we had the first attempt at the inspection, and that was all craziness. And then we had to reschedule that towards like later in January. And then this all could be like a rough
Did
time
you
out.
have to
But then,
adjust the closing like at that time? Because when you go under contract, you choose a day that you're going to close. Did you have to
yeah, so
then
we,
go back and
we kicked it back a few times. Yeah. So it was supposed to close closer to like early February, I think. And we kicked it back a couple times for the because of that whole inspection thing, and then we had a couple things that we wanted them to try to fix. So we again, this is my obviously my first purchase and my brother's first purchase, so we didn't really know what was like customary in this process, and so we were like, we did the inspection and we found some things that were like, oh, we kind of want this fixed. Actually, when we went under contract, we also asked for seller assist. We asked for like max seller assist.
6%?
And yeah, and it came out to like 10K or 12K or something crazy. But we in our ask, we just went up again. Yeah, thumbs up for that. But we in our ask, we went up 12K on the ask, and or the bid or whatever. And again, that's where I was saying like, okay, 12K is an extra whatever, $50, 50 something a month. And I'm like, that doesn't move much for me because it's the numbers still work. So that's where I was like, it's less I have to put down. I'm already paying 3.5, and my closing costs are going to be super small because they're pretty much paying for all of them with the seller assist. And then after the inspection, we asked for like a laundry list of things because we were like, fuck it, or screw it.
Yeah.
So, and they came back and they were like, we're giving you $12,000 of seller assist. You do it yourself.
Okay.
And generally that kind of stuff. There was like small little things. There was some big asks in there, but nothing like substantial that, I couldn't just do myself afterwards. But it was mostly like, hey man, that's kind of what this money's for. So,
Right. But you always
so
try to ask whatever you can. I mean, hey, why not?
And we were like, well, why not, right? I have nothing to lose. I have somewhere to live right now, and I don't need to move out. I just want this house. I don't need it. So I was like, just shoot for the moon. And again, it was my brother's first house, so he didn't really know what was customary. And it's also COVID, so things are kind of in a weird state. Yeah. So we asked for a bunch of stuff, and there was some back and forth on that for a bit, but eventually we closed early March, like March 5th or something like that. And so there was a lot of pushback, and that was another one of those things where it's like we kept kind of pushing back. We were to ask for things, and like things kept pushing back. And is this going to happen? And then eventually we got there. So yeah, from I think I got this house at the time where I had the ability to do that, and then from what I hear after that, it was like people would put up a house
I would
and
just,
same day,
yeah,
yeah, just no inspection. We just want it.
no getting money from the seller. Yeah.
Yeah,
If if I had to guess, likely what happened with your closing costs changing is that your rate expired because you pushed back
percent.
the closing date. So if the rate is only locked in for a certain amount of time until you're
Okay,
supposed to close. When you push back the closing date, you sometimes get a couple days of extension, but if you had to push it back multiple times, it expired, and then you have
yeah,
to like, reprice it with the market how it is that day.
right. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't just keep a little bit or just push the rate up a little bit and
Higher.
not
Ah,
take the points or whatever. But in any case, it's just a nice flex to say that I had a 2.5%
yeah,
interest rate. So
exactly, exactly.
maybe that's why I did it.
Yeah, just that's great. All right, last
Yeah.
thing here. Why is homeownership important to you?
Um, well, for me, it's I own my own business, and so I am very much like entrepreneurial minded, and I kind of see opportunities through the lens of how does this make sense financially for me and in the long run. And so while I don't own a home for myself right now, I rent, but I own this rental property. It's important for me, I think, because I want to diversify the things that I have in my life um, that are providing value and money and assets into my life. So, I have my own business, and I also have, well, technically it's a separate business, which is real estate. And I put my money elsewhere, but for me, real estate's been just a solid investment through and through. Like when you own your own business, you have to ensure that you eat what you kill, and you are responsible for the money that comes in, and you have to keep selling over and over again. And stock market, you just don't know what it's going to do. You don't know what the Fed is going to say, and it's just going to tank or go up, or what Elon's going to tweet or something. So real estate's been just the most consistent in terms of just money in every month. For me, being that's more of a rental property, money in every month. And occasionally you get the tenant that's a little late on rent, but you put some fees on it, and now it's more money in every month. But it's been just consistently like I know that money's coming in, and how I've been able to set it up after I've moved out. That money continues to grow in terms of you know how much I'm able to charge per room and per apartment. And so it's just been not only steady but also like incremental. So yeah, I think real estate for me has just been just the solid foundation in terms of like in such a like digital world where everything's kind of just intangible, if you will, and you can't really control it too much. Real estate being just a hard physical asset that people always need somewhere to live, and they're going to pay rent, has just been comforting to me to know like I always got that. There's always money in the banana stand type of thing,
Yeah.
and it'll be something that I'm planning on keeping for many years, and then be able to cash out of that as like a retirement asset.
Yes, exactly. I have someone right now who's thinking about using money that's in their 401k to buy the house. And they're kind of like, should I take money, out of my 401k? That's my savings. And it's hard to visualize because you don't see the money like in a bank account, but it's still your money. Like you own this asset. So you're just moving it from one place to another. And it will
Hmm.
probably grow more and at a faster rate than it would just in the 401k.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously to each their own in terms of how well your 401k is performing and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think if that's your only investment is a 401k, then I would say look for other opportunities like real estate. I mean, there's tax
Yeah.
write-offs, and just like if you don't want to be like a full-time business owner, but you still kind of want that concept of like owning an asset that people pay you for.
Yes.
That's real estate too. Like I
Yes.
said, it's owning a business. And there's stories of like horrible tenants that make it more
Of course.
more part-time than it should be. But really there's months that I forget that I even own the rental property because I don't hear from them. So like, it's really not as much effort. And especially it's one of those things over the first year or two, you might be more hands-on, but then after that, it's like how I always say, it's like being a landlord is like the first year is like having your first child where everything you think is gonna kill it. It's just, don't eat that, don't put that in your mouth. Like, oh no, the temperature's a little high, let's go to the doctor. And then by like month 2, 3, you've kind of like, it's like your second child where you're like, all right, whatever, just go play with knives. I don't care. It's like
Yeah.
what is, again, it's like the hindsight where you're like, that's a molehill. It's not, don't worry about that. By year, like 2, 3, it's like, all right, I know how to handle it. I've been through the ringer enough times,
Yeah.
where things aren't as difficult as you think they are, like day one.
That's so right. That's so right. Love it. Great stuff from you, Dave. Thank you for sharing.
Wait.
Oh, yes. Let's do it. Yeah. Awesome. If anyone who's curious, it's Restream. Restream lets you, I guess, do these really cool effects and also stream to multiple social media channels.
Click that affiliate link. Get that commission.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Restream. So if you're watching this mostly on Instagram, but if you're also watching, we're on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube as well.
Ooh.
So yeah, very nice. Anyway, thank you. Anyone remember questions? Put them in the comments or just DM Dave. He'll be tagged here, and also check out his business and go buy a triplex. You can find one.
If you need help, DM me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see